You're running a shop floor, not a Pinterest interest board or a fantasy football league. You don't need inspiration, you need things to work. So welcome to Build Your Way, a podcast from Cetec ERP. This is a show for manufacturers who are in it every day, from quoting and shipping jobs to troubleshooting quality and material shortages, all while staying a step ahead of what's next. We bring you stories from the field, lessons that stick, and strategies that actually scale to help you build better. Let's get to work.
All right, welcome back to the Build Your Way podcast. I'm Taylor Wagon.
I'm Scott Ryan.
And we're here with Cetec ERP, and today's guest is Jeremy Carter. Jeremy Carter is a longtime friend for both Scott and I, and we asked Jeremy to join us today. He's done actually a stint at our user conference, ERPalooza, and you're here because you work in private equity, often purchasing and dealing with small manufacturers. And we thought that might be an interesting angle for the manufacturers that we know.
We share a little bit of your background and how you came about into
Wait. We're teeny.
oh, book time.
Hang on.
Time. I need like a jingle or something.
Yeah.
To rein me in.
Bing.
Yeah.
It's book time. And today's book is sort of a classic, at least in the software world. And I'm wondering if this is crossed over into engineering space. Frederick Brooks's, masterpiece.
That is
The
not.
Mythical Man Month. Did you ever read this? I recommend you've read this.
I haven't.
Oh, man.
It's going to make it on the list, though.
It's gold. This is a gold book. Frederick Brooks was responsible for the IBM mainframe operating system back when. And this book is like still useful for large project management. And this Mythical Man Month is coded because at IBM at the time, they would get an estimate for work and be like, oh, that's going to take, 8,000 man months. And, okay, well, if we put 8,000 people on it, it'll be done in 1 month.
Mm.
And
It's kind of like babies.
yeah, exactly. Like it just doesn't work that way.
Mhm.
Because, you add all the overhead, all the communication, and like even task segmentation, how that works. He makes a lot of great little points of analysis as he deconstructs like what went wrong with their project on this. I've got another one that's a much more narrative form that I'll bring up in another week. That's a book actually on Windows AT and what went right and wrong with that process for them. But this is excellent, highly recommended, relevant for any complex project. ETO people, many of you guys have probably read this or know about it. Software people, great book, truly excellent. So
I'm always amazed. Well, the opposite of both of these. Every time you say you probably know about this, I'm always amazed at how many people don't, but also like what people do. It's very funny. It's like things are less ubiquitous than you like claim they are, but then like when they hit, they they deeply resonate. So that you just launching grenades and hoping that
it's like the funny reference that you make. That I really hope somebody has seen, like episode 3 of season 2 on Seinfeld, and like somebody's gonna watch.
there's this like pre-jab. Oh, you probably know what this is.
This is very Taylor. I think you actually secretly hope that only one person gets it. And all the rest are like, should I act like I get this?
That's gold for
I know.
in a public speaking.
I know.
And like
And one guy chuckles.
who laughs out there. You're like, that's my guy.
Catch us up a little bit on like your background. How did you kind of roll into?
Sure. Yeah. Who are you? What are you doing? Who do you work for?
Who's your daddy?
I mean, I do.
What does he do?
And I run what is essentially a finance company right now, but I'm not your conventional finance guy.
Definitely. You're very unconventional.
Well, I mean, my background's engineering and operations. I met 20-something years ago, and I came here to Austin to start a tech company for mechanical systems. We were making transmission systems, and at the time, I was running a R&D group, and we were making patents.
I was telling somebody about that scooter.
Yeah, man.
So that he had an electric scooter. And now electric scooters in Austin are everywhere. But
We were visionaries.
you guys were way ahead of that, and this
Big, bulky, ugly thing.
was ridiculous.
It was stupid.
And the whole point was just to test that small transition.
We had a transmission in the rear wheel.
And I was like, man, I could ride that thing every day to work. And it's like, I just need miles on it. It's like, okay. So I rode it all the way to our office on South Lamar every day and all the way back. The only human in Austin, actually, Jason Ford and I are the only humans in Austin riding electric scooters. Just,
Oh, it was so funny. And it looked so stupid. This was like 06, 07. And it had this big lead acid battery. And like after a while, they all just died somewhere.
Is this pre or post motorcycle days?
this is pre-motorcycle.
This was the precursor. This was the foundation to motorcycles, was riding my little electric scooters.
Is this the
Yeah.
building blocks?
His late 20s. That was
it's a good
hilarious.
time. But yeah, I mean, that was what I did. Before that, I worked in automotive and worked in a drivetrain group and spent a bunch of time doing R&D for transmission systems. And then we actually right about that time in 08, when the downturn, we were running a licensing business, which is why we were building all these patents. And people weren't licensing, or our licensees weren't manufacturing, and we took in a manufacturing operation. And it was sort of a do or die time for the business. And I took on the role of setting up a manufacturing facility in China.
In China,
Yeah.
which was wild because you were flying over it all the time and always doing those conference calls. And
I mean, prior to that, we had a U.S. partner first in Oklahoma and then another one in Cleveland, Ohio. And I mean, I knew what we were doing, but then it landed on me to set up quasi greenfield facility, and it was just a great experience. And I figured out, along the way, I got an MBA, and then I kind of learned how to make cash flow through these businesses, both the hard way and sometimes the easy way. Cut my teeth on my first ERP and operating system, and had to just truly figure out how to get a manufacturing business to make money. And then I moved into a biz dev role and then a corporate development role, and we started doing deals both in the U.S. We did a bunch of stuff with tier one automotive suppliers, both in the U.S. and in Europe. And I got to a point I was either going to take over that business or I was going to go buy one, and I took the latter. And some friends of mine here in Austin, some guys we know, they were running a hedge fund doing stuff in more public markets, and they asked me to help them start a private equity practice, and I did that and had a great time. But I got really sucked into what they were doing in public markets, which is fascinating. But you end up spending a lot of time behind a computer staring at 10Ks and Qs and all the public market stuff. And I honestly just think I enjoy, and I'm probably a little more gifted being in the operation. And so we formed my current business partner approached me in 2019 with a deal that he had, and I helped him with that. It did not close, and fortunately it didn't. It was a capital equipment deal that would have closed in March of 2020, which would have been pretty tough. But we just kind of realized we saw the world the same, and we formed this company to buy businesses in the lower middle market. And since then, we've done 14 transactions. We did a roll-up in a telecom business that we exited somewhat against my better judgment. We're a little different in how we think about this, and our preference is to buy these businesses and hold them indefinitely, largely because, number one, I think it's just better to run. If you buy these businesses to flip them, you just don't run them the same. And I think for the people in your audience here, there's an extreme that says, let me get the most money I can, and I don't really care about it, and that's fine. There might be a private equity world that's going to pay a little bit more just to get it. There's another side of it that is just different, buying to a buyer that wants to be a long-term owner. And that's what we do. And so most of what we have is a near permanent hold.
So I have a million questions on what you just said. I would love to go and talk about China systems, like what did you do for inventory tracking? How did that work? And then I also want to roll into the difference between what you're doing with buy, hold, and what does that mean capital-wise versus like a lot of the P models where, we've just closed our fourth fund, and that means obviously they're likely cycling on somewhere between a 3 to 5 to 7 year basis. So let's start with China. You're in China. It's on the other side of the world, and presumably they're not running SAP.
They ultimately tried to build, that's where they went, is to implement SAP. And it was partly because I got on a plane to go over there for some like short run inventory, short like trial run. And I get off the plane and we had this great plan, and then there's parts are missing and they hadn't ordered them. And I remember this was, I didn't know. I mean, I was learning everything at the time. And I literally built a system in a spreadsheet that was just like, you're going to prove to me that you have everything that you need. And then we're going to use this to make decisions to buy more. And then kind of realized pretty quickly, probably talking to you a little bit, but like, why am I building this on my own?
I remember having conversations with you about that.
I mean,
Like, that's just like, dude, you're going to be reinventing a lot.
It's actually taught me. It's funny because along the way now that we look at a lot of deals right now. We look at about 600 of these a year, and some percentage of them show up kind of like I was then, and they're super excited about what they've done. They're like, well, we're building our own ERP tracking system.
Oh, we hear this. We hear
And it makes me laugh. I'm like, there's entire businesses that spend their whole life on this, and it's not the same as the business you're running. And if you think you're going to do it on the back burner, like, really?
I literally had a call. I had a call yesterday with a lead who was, they want to have 5 users, so they're like, they're not large, but they're very proud of their complexity. Like, we deal with some very hard things. And then they were like, our people are extraordinarily smart, and several of them just want to write the system themselves. I had a call last week where I heard like almost literally the same thing, that they're going to write the ERP themselves. And I remember thinking like, man, like it's an army for us, of like 35, 40 engineers working all day.
And every time
just doing this stuff for
introduce,
like decades.
There's like you're magnifying all the new things that can go wrong.
Uh-huh.
I mean, software that's the reality. And it's funny. I mean, as an aside from this, one of the things I learned in that, I did a lot in quality. Because the second thing that would happen is either we wouldn't have parts or we'd have a bunch of parts that didn't hit spec.
Yeah, way too many.
And like we're supposed to make 1,000 units or something like that, or whatever the trial run was. And the first one would come off the line breaks in some kind of inspection. And so I learned a ton about operations that translate, or in quality specifically, that translated to actually good business. And that is, every one of these things, these parts have a tolerance, and you need to have a process, and you need to have a system that can make sure it delivers at least half, maybe a 10th or a 1,000th of whatever the tolerance is. Otherwise, variability is going to fall out of that. And it's interesting that as I've gone forward, that exact same mindset comes in like customer experience and sales and fulfillment and phone calls. Yeah. Ultimately, you get to a point of like, people want a predictable, easy button. And that's what I had a 12-hour flight that was kind of hanging on easy, and it wasn't easy. So you just start putting your solutions in, and you're like, you know what? Someone else spends their whole life pushing the button or creating the button. Let me push that one. If they know what they're doing, it's well worth it.
Right. Yeah. Specialization.
Yeah. Adam Smith was right. Division of labor. You should put that one on your.
Yeah. No kidding. Yeah. Okay. The other one. I realize we're all over the map here, but I did want to ask just on that intro. So how do you feel like the fund structure for you is different compared with like we as a software company, we get all kinds of PE interest. I think most manufacturers in America, if you reach a certain size, you cross 5 million, you cross 10 million, it's whatever your industry is, you're going to start handling a lot of phone calls of people who are interested. And a lot of them are really hoping that they can find a business that has a lot of cash buried away, in inventory, in a bank account, and, that's not leveraged, and they can LBO it essentially, and then, flip it in 3 years by, changing the numbers around, versus if you're saying, hey, no, we're buying and, we're intending to hold forever. Realistically, you're playing a very different cash game.
I am.
So you're going to get outbid, in theory, every time in a rational market, right?
I mean, the short answer is yes, we do get outbid a lot, but I'm not necessarily the low-cost bidder. It just depends on the situation. And we're definitely lately, we're spent a lot of time on strategies. How predictable of a playbook can I put together that when we buy this business, I can convince myself that we're going to realize more value. I mean, at the end of the day, everybody that's coming at you, if they're even remotely worth their salt, has got some kind of financial model that has got certain growth levers of value that are going to be growth, margin, predictability, maybe risk, and so on. And if I put a number on the table and somebody puts a higher number, whether they mean it or not, they're implicitly expecting higher growth or higher margin or lower risk.
Yeah.
I mean, some of them.
Yeah, and some are just going to be wrong.
Yeah, some of them are better than others. What we're working on is actually, it might make sense to actually pay a little bit more. I'm actually buying, and it's tough because there's a lot of the family offices that would invest with us will say, like, why am I going to pay these guys a bunch of money when we have to create the value? There's a flip side to that buying that company might be an option to give me the opportunity to create the value. But I got to have a good playbook to believe it.
Yeah.
And it's a balance, man. If you overpay for this business, that's the definition of risk. I'm giving up money now for some amount of value in the future, and I got to have a predictable plan to bridge those two gaps. And if I overpay up front, it's really easy to get in trouble. So yeah, I would rather pay less.
Are you paying in like actually just straight dollars? Like, what does that look like in terms of, let's say I have a contract manufacturing company.
Yeah.
And, we're doing 15 million a year. And, we get an EBITDA number. I assume you're looking at EBITDA, not at revenue.
Usually. Or I think a lot about free cash flow.
Okay.
But yes, we do price it on EBITDA as an equalizer in some ways, right? Because different financing structures and different tax situations.
EBITDA, everybody in the podcast world, I assume many, if not all of you know this, earnings before interest, depreciation, taxes, and amortization, P&L towards the bottom, excluding some one-time things.
Charlie Munger called it bullshit earnings at the same time.
It is. It's gameable. We'll just say that. If you would like advice on how to game your EBITDA numbers, go ahead and email us at podcast@cetecerp.com. And we could do a follow-up session about how to game your EBITDA numbers to schnooker the PE guys.
Hey, is there a sneaky Pete? That's
So sneaky Pete, one of our accounting classes internally, accounting 102. I think 102 deals with Sneaky Pete's financial fraud.
Oh, goodness.
Like fraud.
We should just talk about a deal process as how we manage that, because I gotta protect from that as well. And I defend EBITDA in some way, because you can have two identical businesses, and one of them you put a decent bit of debt on it, and there's obviously quite a bit of interest. That interest changes the tax profile depending on where it's located. You might have a different tax profile, and if I want to compare A and B, I actually I basically look at it before all those things happen, because a lot of people put that below the operating income line for this reason. So there's a value to it. You just have to make sure that the business actually has the ability to throw off cash, because at the end of the day, that's what you and the business eats. Yeah, you're getting cash flow. So to you, I actually want to back up 2 steps. You asked a couple questions in there. In terms of how we structure the deal, it's all over the map. And I think this is probably useful for your audience.
Our audience now, since you're here as well. Thank you.
Yes.
If one extreme of the buying process is you want to find a buyer that's going to write a check and you go away, the risk profile to that buyer is very different.
For sure.
And if I'm that person, we're going to write a smaller check. Just love it or hate it, because I can't absorb all there's too much in your brain that I will never capture in a 3-month close process. The other extreme, actually, I think the process that we're running is not just to write a check and you go away. It's really a transition. Why these businesses are doing what they're doing. If it's a great business, honestly, my competition should be whatever their succession plan is. And, if you are an operator and you've been running it for a while, there's a risk for you in letting go of that, and it's an income stream for you. And if it's really worth me buying, well, then why wouldn't you just hire them, spend a few $100,000 on a GM, let them run it, and you just take cash flows forever? And the reason that's very, very difficult, and a lot of
It's very hard.
Yeah. The role I play is that transition. That the reason I'm even having a chance to look at it, because they probably haven't solved that problem of how to transition it, or maybe they just truly want to be out. They want to get rid of the liability. But to your question of how we structure it, we would prefer to structure it where there's a pretty good cash component up front, but there's something that can be anything. It can be, I'm sure you get kind of scared hearing the term earnouts. but an earnout keeps us aligned.
Depends on how long the earnout is.
Yeah, and how it's measured and all of that. The seller notes rolling equity with some kind of almost like a call option where in 5 years we're going to buy it at some predetermined price or something, but you get a chance to participate in the upside. More, what you're really doing is, I mean, for us, hopefully you got somebody you're going to trust to build that transition plan that for whatever reason you didn't build, and collectively we make a lot more money, and you get to participate in that upside through the transition. And that's what we're spending a lot of time on is, my helpfulness to the selling world and maybe even intermediaries is proving that I can manage that transition well. And, they should take a lot of chips off the table up front. But if they believe in their business and we can get to know each other and then kind of trust our plan,
They should leave something.
and they'll get a lot more. And for me, it's like, hey, all the tribal knowledge that's in your brain, this is enough to keep you incented that you're going to kind of roll with me and make sure that we work together. And so we'll structure, it depends on the wants of the person, but we'll structure it anywhere in that spectrum.
So I have a person that I respect deeply in our industry who was a Cetec ERP customer and sold their company to a larger company that was, in the roll-up strategy. And they got a smallish cash component and, stake in this larger rolled-up venture with what was essentially, when the larger venture hits these targets, then, everybody cashes out and, rolls to victory, and it's going to be awesome. And that larger company never got there and went belly up about 4 years later. And it turns out even their whole roll-up strategy itself was a little too financially shaky, and they couldn't handle, some of the, vicissitudes, ups and downs.
Probably put a ton of debt on it.
Too much debt.
They tend to do.
And they went bankrupt, and my guy never got paid, essentially. And his business was like destroyed, which he had worked very hard on, and he had a great business, had built it extremely well. And it was, I was not involved in it at all. And I was upset. I was very frustrated because he'd done a great job building this company, took care of a lot of people, and then everybody was stuck.
Yeah.
And that was kind of interesting. I hadn't really thought about the due diligence on the buyer side versus the seller side, and like, it's really
both.
It's a dating situation.
You are, and it's like anything. I'd liken it sometimes to interviewing people, that you get one or two interviews, or hiring people, you get one or two dates and then you got to get married. Except we're really getting married.
Yeah, it's fast.
And over like this family heirloom here.
Heirloom.
But I just go back to that. If you can't find somebody you can trust and you can manage that transition plan together, then you're going to look for something that's cash up front, and everybody's going to kind of manage risk. And I've been in a lot of cases, these conversations for us, the best of these are people that we've been talking to for a long time, and they trust us and they know us, and they acknowledge, I don't know the situation in that company, but the alternative is I don't sell, and who's to say I don't run it into the ground or the market doesn't change? There's risk in everything.
Sure.
So you want to put yourself with a partner that you can really trust, and that's a little bit of what we spent a lot of time trying to be the best long-term home. Back to kind of your previous question of like
forever home.
Yeah, we there is a model in private equity that might not be wrong, but this idea of flipping businesses, they're doing that because the fund structure, and fundamentally actually the people giving them money, if you think about it, they want to give it to somebody that they want to believe is a great capital allocator, but they're so great they want to take the money back from them inside of 10 years. It's sort of a protection, but that mechanism forces
It's just less commitment, man.
From an operating perspective, anybody has to acknowledge that if you're running a business to get rid of it in a few years, you're just going to run it differently. And from my perspective, as the equity guy, if it's great business and we're going to liquidate it and I got a bunch of cash in my pocket, then I have to reallocate. And how do I know
if you have a great business and it's growing, then
you could screw that up as well. And you pay a bunch of taxes and a bunch of fees. I'd rather just have a great business and progressively make it greater.
I just want to pause and ask a more just basic question. What kind of companies do you look at? You guys have 20 years of conversation. I just want to contextualize it. Who are we talking about?
Yeah.
Really into companies. Who are we talking about?
Yeah, so in the high level, we'll look at anything we can understand and that we can reasonably price. The reality is our background is manufacturing, distribution, supply chain. We do a decent bit in chemicals and chemical equipment, and then some tech. And then
You ever talk to Walter White?
It's a growing industry.
yeah.
A lot of free cash flow.
Yeah.
It is actually.
Chemicals.
It is. Two to as high as 20 million in EBITDA, but the reality is when you get that high, they are more sophisticated businesses.
Yeah, that's a different profile.
Yeah.
You're trying to get
Or
into that level, not start at that level.
More value, if you think of what I just my background, the sweet spot's probably 2 to 8 million in EBITDA. And again, businesses that don't have this succession plan that appreciate somebody putting that transition in place, and just good people that we can trust. That's kind of the beginning of it. If there's some people that have sort of made some of the strides that we've talked about, including process and systems and marketing and all that, you do kind of sit there and say, what value am I going to add?
Yeah.
And so we're almost.
You want somebody who's got a little bit of the dummy in them. You want them to be good, but not too good,
Usually it's somebody, these owners, it's kind of true. But if I was sitting in the shoes, if I was running a business and sitting in the shoes of somebody, like I said, I'd either be moving.
You sound like my wife choosing to marry me.
So I can't find a better man.
Hey, somebody that's done some things well, but is still kind of an idiot.
I think of it this way: you've built a system that's pretty good, and it's just difficult to know how to change it. And so you've done everything you can to get yourself to a level, and they hit the next level, I got to change, and that's pretty scary. And that's why I think my role exists, because a lot of these folks, and you guys probably bump into this, you're implementing a new system and they don't want to adopt change. And they're I get it, man, because they've probably tried a bunch of stuff and it's failed on them. And so they're just going to white knuckle the same plan. And for me, it's a transaction forces the change.
Wild. We had a company that went live. We had somebody on site. They flew home Friday, and on Friday, while he was on the airplane, the owner emailed and said, "We can't do it. It's too much. It's too hard. We're rolling it back. We're going to the old system." Yeah. And then they spent 3 months talking about what they need to do and how they need more training and they have to do these things. Okay. And this week, the retiring CFO sent an email and said they're not going to do it. They would rather be fat, dumb, and happy on their old system that is no longer supported and won't work. And I'm retiring, and they're not gonna move.
Wow.
And that's a great company to buy.
You just described almost my morning. We bought a company in December that makes boxes, and they had a failed implementation about 1.5 years ago of Acumatica. And it was almost explicitly that. The prior owner, who wasn't super involved, the man, it's a kind of a complicated system with this one manager, but the owner was almost that. I don't want to screw with it. Will it make it the next guy's problem? And I can tell you that for me, that was there's a lot of empathy. He did it because it's really difficult.
It is a lot of
scary,
work.
And the fact is you could implement and then your business tanks and now you got to run it for another 5 or 10 years.
Fat, dumb, and happy doesn't sound that bad.
But if he had done it, to be perfectly honest, he probably would have invited another level of financial interest. There are funds out there that have no interest in getting involved in the operation at all, and they're looking for businesses that don't need them to get in the operation. Maybe they've got much bigger strategic hurdles they're trying to cross. But probably that situation, and I own this company now because they didn't cross that hurdle, and I think we're having a great experience kind of re-upping that and saying we're going to implement some change, And man, we're going to hold your hand through it, and it's going to be okay. But we're not going to do what we've always done, because that's why you transacted in some ways.
Now, I know you have questions,
I do have some questions.
and I want to make sure that, our friend Jeremy is able to answer some of those.
Okay. Well, I think most importantly, for our listening audience, we would like to know, if you were an animal, which animal would you be
And why?
and why?
Oh, goodness, wagon. I have no idea.
Do you want us to pick for you?
Please.
Oof.
I think a liger. I think it's hard.
Tiger. Yeah.
Just one animal on.
Majestic fur,
Yeah.
That sounds good.
but maybe a little thin on the top.
Yeah. That's why the liger is perfect.
It's all checked out. Fair enough.
Why do you think Steph Curry is top 3 all time?
Oh, Scott, you know the answer to this. Yeah.
Do you like that he chews on his mouth guard a lot?
No, I don't like that, but he's redefined the game.
To realize that, our listeners are evaluating if you're a good option. And this
That's
is
right.
Gaining the trust.
Yeah, this is definitely.
Man, come on. When we were young, we played like NBA Live, whatnot, and guys shooting all over the floor, and he's on fire, and it looked like a video game. Steph Curry looks like a video game. That he's it's actually annoying watching how many people hoist threes all over the place, kind of hoping they can be Steph, but the NBA is doing that, and it's just amazing.
Thank you for listening. You can find us in all the usual spots: YouTube, Spotify, your favorite platform. And if you do have any questions, please contact us at podcast@ctecherp.com. And we will catch you next time here on the Build Your Way podcast. Thank you for listening.